first BBC team to have gained access to Goma since that violence stopped. Well, staying in DRC, residents of Goma are reportedly starting to return to the city. The rebels are promising to restore basic services, including water and power. Camille Ndota is the founder and president of the NGO Africa New Day, with a mission to transform Congo from within. They have a staff of over 200 people working within the country, and at the weekend he took the opportunity to get his young daughter to safety out of the DRC.
I was able to get her out of Goma, and I am planning to make sure that she's actually out of the country. I'm in Central Africa right now.
Tell me a little bit about the situation with your daughter, how it came to be that you had to go and get her, and what the journey was like getting her out.
She was with me actually in Goma when all these things happened, when the city was actually invaded by the rebel group, and I was trying to make sure that she's safe, because I knew that when these things happen, they would look for people with some degree of influence to be able to advocate for the legitimacy of their actions. So my concern was really, how can I put her in a safe place so that she was not going to be harmed.
And how old is she?
She's 9 years old.
I mean, you may not have had a chance to process this, but as a father, as a parent, it must have been so frightening.
The problem was, in addition to trying to get my daughter in a safe place, was actually to make sure that the people that I left behind, especially the church, and we have an organization, we have a school, to make sure that they were okay. Because for many, many days there were no electricity, there were no internet connection, and there was no water. And so the situation was getting worse day by day. So the question was, how do we make sure that those people have the minimum necessities to actually survive?
You have a staff of around 200 people working in DRC. How are they now? What's the situation for them now?
Well, thank God we didn't have any loss in lives. So all the people that work with our organization are safe. They're just facing the increase of costs of living, with the prices of basic commodities being sometimes doubled and very difficult to have access to. In addition to them having a problem with communication, because although the internet and electricity has been restored, they still need money to be able to send, messages to their families that are not in Goma, and let them know that they're okay. For the most part, that's what we're trying to make sure, that they actually have the minimum they need to be able to survive, them and their families.
And how available are services, whether it's internet or food or even water?
The water is being restored for a part of Goma. It's not everybody that has access to Goma, and then that's an old situation. It was pretty much the scene in Goma where people would go and fetch water at the lake and then bring them to their houses. Same thing with power. Electricity has been restored, but not everybody has access to electricity anyways. So that's the situation that we've known in Goma for quite some time, and it was worse when the rebel group took over, because everything was shut down. But now it's actually restored for some people.
And what do you know about who is in control of Goma at the moment?
Where the government forces and their allies have vowed to go to the end, and they've determined not to concede defeat. That's what we know right now.
So is there still fighting?
Yes, they're still resisting, and at night you could hear gunshots, and we assume that there's still confrontations between the two camps.
Are people starting to return to Goma, do you know?
Very few people. The majority are actually trying to escape. Some are going to Bukavu, some are going to Kigali, some are trying to go to Kampala and other capitals in the east. And those that are able to go to those eastern capitals some of them are trying to get back to Kinshasa. That's the majority of the movement right now. It's an exodus more than people trying to go back.
But you want to go back to Goma?
Certainly. I've left many people in our organization, in our church, and that might benefit from my presence there.
That was Camille Toto, founder and president of Africa New Day, an NGO based in the DRC.
Combe listening in Cameroon has sent us a WhatsApp to say the crisis in the DRC does not require negotiations, rather the M23 rebels must leave the country immediately. Governments must take decisive action. Should they never resurface? Thank you very much indeed for your messages. Let's head to Spain now, where the trial begins today of the former president of the country's football federation, Luis Rubiales, who faces charges of sexual assault. You may remember he sparked controversy around the world when he kissed a member of the Spanish women's team on the lips after the World Cup final in Australia in 2023. The BBC's Guy Hedgecoe joins us now live from Madrid. Just tell us, Guy, the level of interest there is in this case in Spain.
Well, there's a huge amount of interest in this. When you mentioned the controversy that was sparked back in 2023 when Luis Rubiales kissed the player Jenny Hermoso on the mouth, there was enormous controversy then. There was a big social, political backlash against Mr. Rubiales. He claimed the kiss was consensual. Jenny Hermoso said it was not. But I think now that Mr. Rubiales is facing legal charges and is going on trial for sexual assault, I think people's interest in this has surfaced again, and there's a great deal of anticipation ahead of this trial, in great part because of the serious nature of the charges that Mr. Rubiales is facing.
Will Jenny Hermoso be testifying?
She will be testifying. She has flown over to Spain from Mexico, where she plays her club football, specifically for this court case, and she will be the first witness to take the stand this morning. So we're waiting for her to arrive in court now. But obviously, her testimony is going to be perhaps the most highly anticipated of all, although there will be other teammates of hers testifying as well over the coming days, members of the Football Federation and members of the national team coaching staff, for example, who will also be testifying. But obviously it's her testimony which many people are anticipating a great deal.
And what is the potential punishment that Luis Rubiales faces if convicted?
Well, he's facing two charges. One is the charge of sexual assault, and he's also facing a charge, along with three other former members of the Football Federation, a charge of coercion for allegedly trying to force Jenny Hermoso to say publicly that the kiss had been consensual, something she didn't do. And so together with those two charges together could lead to a jail sentence of up to 2.5 years. That's what the prosecutor is calling for Luis Rubiales.
You've been in Spain for a very long time. Is it noticeable, the change that kiss and the discussion that it led to has had on Spain?
I think it had a tremendous impact in terms of people talking about it. I think it certainly led to a lot of people examining their relationships, for example, their work relationships. A lot of men I spoke to said that they felt there had been some kind of shift, whether it was in sort of office relationships or relationships between bosses and female employees, that people were being rather more careful than they had been beforehand, that men were being more careful. Other people don't think it's been as clear-cut as that, but undoubtedly there has been a lot of debate about this, a lot of talking about it, and I think people have certainly thought about this issue a lot more, and it has fed into this broader issue of sexual consent, which has been a big political issue here in Spain, and the broader issue of gender equality as well, which has been also a big social and political issue here in Spain over the last few years.
And how long will the trial last? When should we know the verdict?
Well, it lasts until February the 19th. It's a 2.5-week trial. After that, we don't have a set date for a verdict, but we're told that the the verdict could come within days or possibly within weeks, but I think the authorities are hoping it won't be much longer than that because of the enormous public interest in it.
Thanks, Guy. BBC's Guy Hedgecoe there, joining us from Madrid.
Let's get the sport now with Isaac.
Yeah, it is men's transfer deadline day in England. A busy day ahead, no doubt. One especially for the BBC's chief football news reporter, Simon Stone, who's joining us on the line. Morning, Simon. Good morning. We saw a big move on Sunday evening with Marcus Rashford moving to Aston Villa on loan to the end of the season. Interesting that he's going to another Premier League club for Manchester United.
Yes, we've been talking about this in Fields for about a month and a half now, since Marcus Rashford was dropped for the Manchester derby and his training performances questioned by Ruben Amorim. He's not really... He got back into the squad once, but he never made it back onto the pitch since then. And yes, he said, he put a statement out last night, said it was an easy choice. He doesn't have to move house. He's getting to work under Unai Emery, who is one of the most highly regarded coaches within the game. I think even people close to Marcus Rashford accept that he's not been playing well, and that Emery can get the best out of him. And obviously Aston Villa are trying to qualify for the Champions League next season, and they've also already qualified for the last 16 of this season's competition. So actually Marcus Rashford has got more to look forward to by joining Aston Villa than he would have had if he'd have stayed at Manchester United.
Interesting state of affairs there. Are we expecting United to be busy today?
Well, it's interesting because I think on the back of the fact that they lost another home game yesterday, the 5th out of 6 against Crystal Palace, I think there's a lot of pressure on them to try and improve Ruben Amorim's squad. He said people behind the scenes will be working until the last minutes to try and make things better. But the word from Manchester United is they haven't got anything lined up, so it's whether the pressure kind of comes to bear on the people at United to try and improve a side that looks stuck in the bottom half of the table, and I think that will be a lot of pressure, and it'll be very interesting to see whether they make a move for anyone.
Chelsea, Simon, often very busy transfer deadline days. Any suggestion that today's going to be different?
No, I think Chelsea will be one of the more active clubs. You've got Ben Chilwell, the England international, who's a bit like Rashford, surplus to requirements. At Chelsea, I think he's going to move to Crystal Palace, probably on loan to start with, but he should be able to get a game. There's João Felix. It looks pretty clear that Chelsea are willing for him to move somewhere. We're not exactly sure where. Axel Disasi was also linked with Aston Villa, but it doesn't look as though that's going to happen, so it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. And then away from Chelsea, but the team that Chelsea are actually playing in a Premier League game tonight, West Ham, we think they're going to try and sign, or going to sign, Brighton striker Evan Ferguson, who a couple of years ago scored a huge amount of goals and was nominated for PFA Player of the Year. Form and injuries have affected him since then, but I think that will be another deadline day move.
In terms of other clubs, what are we seeing? What are the other deals we should keep an eye out for?
I think Manchester City will try and bring in a midfielder. They obviously suffered a really bad defeat at Arsenal yesterday. They've still not plugged the gap that Rodri left when he suffered his major knee injury in September. So we're thinking that Nico Gonzalez, the Porto player, used to play for Barcelona, so there is a kind of link there with Pep Guardiola, that he will be the player that basically comes to plug that gap. And just going back to Manchester United, if there is someone, they were linked with Matthias Tell, Bayern Munich player. It seems that he is not going to Manchester United. Whether he will go somewhere else remains to be seen. And Christopher Nkunku, they were also linked Manchester United with him. He plays for Chelsea, but it seems he's not going to be the person that they go for either. So will Nkunku move? That's another deal that we'll see whether it happens or not.
Well, you can follow all of this on the BBC Sport website. Simon will be very, very busy today. Simon, appreciate you for joining us on the programme there. Head to bbc.com/sport for that. Let me give you some other sports news before I go. One of the biggest basketball sporting transactions ever has taken place. The Los Angeles Lakers confirming they have traded for Luka Doncic from the Dallas Mavericks in return for the Olympic gold medalist and NBA champion from 2020, Anthony Davis. He heads to Dallas. It's a deal that has stunned many sports fans in the US. Here's the man who orchestrated it, the Dallas team president, Nico Harrison.
I think it was like, how do we make our team better? You know, there's some unique things about his contract that we had to pay attention to. You know, there's other teams that were loading up, you know, that he was going to be able to decide make his own decision at some point of whether he wants to be here or not, whether we want to supermax him or not, or whether he wants to opt out. So I think we had to take all that into consideration and feel like we got out in front of what could have been a tumultuous summer.
Yeah, Harrison there talking about Luka Doncic. On Sunday night at the Toronto Raptors basketball game, this was the sound of Canadian fans to the American national anthem. Yeah, basketball fans and hockey fans continuing an emerging trend of booing the American national anthem at sporting events in Canada because of the tariffs that President Trump has levelled on Canada, fans booing those national anthems there.
Yes, and booing from financial market investors, various governments as well, so they are not alone. Isaac, thank you very much indeed. Now, at the Grammy Awards in Los Angeles, Beyoncé was the big winner of the night, scooping Album of the Year for her country record, Cowboy Carter. The Beatles received Best Rock Performance for their reunion single Now and Then, and the Rolling Stones took home Best Rock Album for Hackney Diamonds. Well, the event was more muted this year after the deadly fires in Los Angeles. The show opened with a special performance by local band The Doors, whose home was destroyed in the Inferno, playing the Randy Newman classic I Love LA. The BBC's Emma Vardy was at the ceremony and sent this report.
The city's recovery took centre stage as the stars gathered to pay tribute in the wake of the fires.
You know, it's often said that in the darkest times, the best of humanity shines through. And the people of Los Angeles right now are a perfect example of that. So tonight, we decided we're not just going to be celebrating our favorite music. We're also celebrating the city that brought us so much of that music.
Presenting one of the most prestigious awards were LA's firefighters.
The Grammy goes to Cowboy Carter.
The most nominated artist in Grammy's history, Beyoncé finally won Best Album after having narrowly lost out multiple times.
I just feel very full and very honored. It's been many, many years.
Kendrick's track, Attacking the Rapper Drake, took Record and Song of the Year, upping the ante, one of rap's long-running feuds. Best New Artist went to Chapel Roan, who called for record labels to provide better support to those starting out.
Record labels need to treat their artists as valuable employees with a livable wage and health insurance and protection. Labels, we got you, but do you got us?
Really hits you hard. I've got 60 years of memories in that house and 3 children.
The awards also featured the stories of people who were affected by the worst fires in LA's history and the bravery of emergency crews who faced the danger.
Where's your classroom? Okay. I'm just really sad because I love that school.
The tone of the evening is different from previous years, with appeals for donations to help people rebuilding their lives. But this is a city which relies on the entertainment business, so the show carries on.
This unique Grammys will be remembered as a nostalgic tribute to LA, using music to inspire a spirit of resilience for the city's recovery mission.
Emma Vardy there reporting from the Grammy Awards ceremony in Los Angeles.
Well, staying with the Grammys, and last year the Best African Music Performance category made its debut. South African artist Tyler won that for her song Water, and it was welcomed across the industry, especially by African artists, as you might expect. But this year, the nominations for that same award have raised eyebrows, especially with the inclusion of the US superstar Chris.